So with this in mind, do y'all remember the distinctions between libertarian, liberal, conservative, and populist? Go ahead, anybody. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Conservatism was trying to keep to the original idea behind the country. Like they didn't want to change any of the old laws. They want to keep them basically the same way they were.
Conserve is really the root of conservatism, and conserve or preserve existing structures. And one of the quotes that I had given you from this chapter was an old Edmund Burke quote that actually makes really, really good sense as you look at this. This one was on page 43. It says in here, liberals place too much confidence in human reason. People are only partly rational. They also have irrational passions. To contain them, society over the years has evolved traditions, institutions, and standards of morality such as the monarchy and an established church. Sweep these aside, said Burke, and man's irrational impulses lead to chaos, which in turn ends in tyranny far worse than the old system. This is the second full indented paragraph on page 43. It's a really great quote when you think about it. He's saying established institutions. The church is a good example. The monarchy or government institutions would be an example. You could argue from the article that I gave you about conservatism, Jim Crow was an example. And know for that article some of the examples of segregation that Jim Crow actually basically that it put forward. And if you remember on there, not being able to shoot billiards at the same table, not being able to play Little League, within 3 blocks of each other. Go ahead.
When we talk about Jim Crow laws, you want us to use what's in the article or other things that we know of?
What I'd like you to focus on are the things that are in the articles, because I've given you a lot of things in there. I'm suspecting that you could show me other things, but if you just show me other things, then you haven't shown me that you've really learned a whole lot. And I want to make sure that's on the video. And this isn't about you, this is about class in general. Yes? But anyway, getting back to conservatives. So bedroom and wallet.
One thing else, what is it? I remember on, can you bring up the page? I'm sorry, the one we were just talking about.
Page 43?
Yes, please.
Sorry, the one we were talking about
Yeah,
earlier.
there's one that,
It's page 41.
there's a chart in the book that says how, like, all these ideologies stem from one ideology.
Yeah.
Do we have to know that?
No, don't worry about that. We have not. The chapter gets into some stuff that I'm not a big. Too much theory is perverse.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's part of my problem when I've been studying for this. Do we sort of ignore the rest of what's in the chapter if it's not on there?
I wouldn't say ignore it, but what I would say is if you spend too much time trying to relate the chapter back to the questions, it's going to take away from the things that you really should know.
So rather take it from the articles.
So the articles, the chapter questions, and the terms, and the things that I really want you to pull from the chapter specifically would be coming from those chapter questions more than they would be coming from the readings in general.
Okay, and you'll post the ones for chapter 7?
Yes, I promise, since you suggested it. I will make sure that the chapter 7 questions are on there. Yes?
I remember I talked to you about whether or not I had to get the book because I started late, and you said it isn't necessary to study for this test. It could help, but it...
Okay, now these are the kinds of things that I don't want on the video. What I would suggest is that when you look at when you look at the outline, there are page numbers that are there, okay? If you can get those definitions from class notes, you're fine. If you can't, then you've got to use the book. And if the big thing that you've really got to use the book for are the chapter questions, because those are the one thing that we didn't do in class. Everything else was covered. So if you want to read the book and get the answers that way, that's fine. You don't have to, but for the chapter questions, you absolutely do, because there are very few of those that I covered. Now let's get back. What is a conservative in terms of bedroom and wallet?
They want to control what goes on in the bedroom.
Okay, that's what a conservative is. That's it.
Is that right?
Oh.
And they don't want to control.
And they don't want to control the wallet. Conservatives are going to believe in regulating morals. And there was a chapter in there, or a quote in there, dealing with the conservatives. There was another one, and it was a really, really good one. This is the last full indented paragraph, third line. On here, no, that's actually liberals, I'm sorry. There's one in here that basically suggests that conservatives believe that everybody should have equal rights. not specific rights for anybody else. And I'm trying to find this right off.
Feminism, wasn't
But
it?
the idea, okay, here it is. It's on page 45. It's the first full indented paragraph. It says, American conservatives would put prayer in public schools, outlaw abortion and same-sex marriage, and support private and church-related schools. Modern conservatives also oppose special rights for women and minority groups because everyone should have the same rights. So when you think about this, they're basically saying in terms of economics, government should stay out of your business. You earn yours, I earn mine, and we both keep what we've earned. But in terms of morals, we do need to place restrictions on some of these. Liberal is going to be the opposite. So what's liberal?
You can do what you want in the bedroom, but we're gonna control where the money's spent.
Yeah, basically what they're saying is that government should stay out of social or moral issues, and government needs to get involved in economic ones. The example that I had given you, if you remember, was actually the one that was dealing with the California tunnel. And when you think about it, liberals typically believe in government being good. Conservatives, on the other hand, typically believe in a negative idea or a negative position for government. So when you think about it, liberals are basically going to be saying, we can drill this tunnel, we can solve this traffic problem, we can fix it, but they're drilling a tunnel that's only a few miles away from a huge magnitude fault line from 100 years ago, and you can argue that that's a good idea or not. Maybe it's 100 years, or maybe it's long overdue. The conservatives would say, if you remember, government is the problem. They can actually make things worse, and the devil that we know is better than the devil that we don't, or the one that we could create. And that's really what they're saying. I have given you also the quote in the culture chapter, which we'll get to as well. And that might even be a better one dealing with liberals and conservatives. But we still have populists and libertarians. What is it with populists? What is it with libertarians?
Libertarians don't believe you should control anything.
Libertarians believe that government is the problem, not the solution. And the smaller the government is, the better off it's going to be.
They had a lot in common with laissez-faire then.
They do, only libertarians add the moral element, not just the economic one. And that's a key thing there. So keep that in mind. They add the moral component and not just the economic one. But libertarians are basically going to believe, in fact, that government should be smaller. We should stay out of people's business. And people, in fact, should rise and fall on their own merits. There should not be a safety net when they fall, and there should not be an artificial push, if you will, to take them to a higher level. Populists, on the other hand, start getting into dictatorial issues. And do you remember what the populists were? They believe in regulating what? They believe in government regulation of morals, and they believe in government regulation of the bedroom, or I'm sorry, the wallet or the economic issues. And I had given you 3 or 4 articles that dealt with this. Star, you had the article dealing with Wolf Hulk, the sex offender. There was the soda article, if you remember. There was, in addition, the hugs article, if you remember. And all of these were really, really good examples of populism. What do you remember about Wolf Hulk, anybody?
Child was taken away because he was a previous sex offender.
Previous sex offender. He had actually committed a double sodomy, a double rape on teenage girls.
But had been clean for 30 years.
He had been clean for a while. He had been out of jail. And what's that? Yeah, some people would argue he paid his debt to society. He was not married. He did father a child. Wolf Hulk was in his 50s, I believe.
I
The
thought
wife.
the article said he was married, but the wife divorced him
And
to
she
try
was a
and get
drug
the
addict.
kid back.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Let's go with that. Okay, for our purposes right now, though, bottom line on this is when you think back to this, what did the state of Pennsylvania do, and how did this relate to populism?
They took the child away basically at birth.
Populists believe that government should look out for the little person because sometimes Joe and Jane Sixpack cannot make the best decisions for themselves. And then in this instance, the state of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth, is basically saying, we need to look out for this child because this child cannot protect itself. And at the time, this child was not even 1 year old. They took this child away very, very quickly. Now, the debate on this, what's the debate?
Is it right? Do they have the right to take the child? How
Yes.
can you take it away for crimes that haven't even been committed yet, just in case they might be?
It sure seems like if he's been clean this long and he hasn't had any issues, he's not committed any other crimes that we know about, it seems like if he's paid his debt to society,
And
then in
also-
fact he should have the right to be a father.
And also, he wasn't convicted of child abuse.
He was not. These were actually other females that were not part of his family, and that would seem.
And he actually
17.
Yeah.
pled guilty and claimed that it was because the
He
lawyer
did.
said he'd have
He
an
did.
easier time.
He claimed guilty, and now that's a little bit more debatable, and that's probably not the most important point for the exam. But when you look back on this, the state of Pennsylvania is saying we have a responsibility to all of our citizens, and since that child can't protect itself, then you know what? We can't take that chance.
There's also the question of what's actually in the best interest of the child, because once it goes in the system, it's gonna be deprived of its mother's love, it's gonna be deprived of a whole bunch of things.
Fair point. Now, as far as deprivation, what did they do regarding Wolf Hawk?
He wasn't even allowed to see the child.
He was not given visitation, much less custody. What about the mom?
The mom had supervised visitation,
Supervised visitation, why?
because they claimed that she was a drug addict.
And she had
In the
drug
article-
issues.
But in the article, because I was the one who read that article,
Yeah.
in the article on that, it said that, or maybe I looked it up online or something, and she'd never been convicted of any drug offense.
That may be, and like I said, that's not the most important thing for this, but the idea is that she had some drug issues, she was given limited custody.
And they
She
took away
did
her other
divorce
child.
him in order to hopefully get custody back, and as of now, do they have custody?
No.
No, they do not have custody at this point, yes.
Did you know that they also took away her other child? That
I
wasn't
didn't,
his?
and I don't need that on the
Okay,
film, because I
sorry.
don't want to confuse anybody. The soda article, what was the soda article dealing with New York City?
And
Oh,
then
yeah,
trying to
super
ban
size.
How big?
Super size.
64 ounces?
16.
16
I
ounces.
actually have that
16
article.
ounces. The fine state of New York City, led by Mayor Bloomberg, decided that in fact obesity was in large measure being caused by what? It was being caused by these sugary sodas. So they began to ban, or at least they proposed to ban sizes so that they could not be any larger than 16 ounces per serving.
And you could buy as many as you wanted, but the idea was that who's gonna wanna get up and go buy another soda?
See, there's a number of things with this, and I think Bloomberg makes some points that basically says that we all have our vices. And, they've had some interesting smoking laws up there, they've had some interesting food laws up there, and these soda laws would have the same impact. Others basically said, wait a minute, this is my body. I have the right to choose what I put into it, especially in this case because this is a legal substance. There's nothing illegal about a 16 ounce or a 32 ounce Pepsi, Diet Pepsi fountain drink,
You're
whatever.
not even banning the substance, you're banning the quantity.
Well, yeah, but again, the thought is that we're also very lazy in America. And since we're lazy, if you limit the quantity size, I'm not going to get up and leave the movie or get up and leave a sporting event to go get 16 more ounces. And I'm sure as heck not going to want to carry around 5 16-ounce drinks during the course of the day because they're going to get warm and they're going to be rolling around in the car. And I'm not going to have this hand to do whatever else I want to do during the course of
His
the day.
idea was that we eat what's in front of us, kind of regardless of how big it is, especially if we're distracted by something like a movie or a sporting event. We're just gonna keep drinking what's in our hand until it's gone.
Right. And the idea of populist is government making decisions for people that don't know any better, so that's what they're doing. Did this ultimately become law?
No.
It was stopped at the very, very end, so this did not get all the way through, although this was proposed. It was passed, but it was never actually implemented. Now, what was the deal with the hugs? What state was this?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. And what was it that New Jersey was doing?
Banning hugs.
They were banning hugs. They also had some policies out there that said that you could not hug for longer than, I believe it was 3 seconds. Yeah, you seem to remember this. What was their logic? What was the deal?
Well, I think the main concern was sexual harassment.
Sexual
I
harassment
thought the
and
main
potential.
concern was it was actually congesting the hallways.
Well, the main point in terms of why they were doing this was sexual harassment. The main point or the main argument as far as why they're passing it was because it was a disruption to the school day, blocking the hallways, and then there were also some kids that were getting hugged a lot and some kids that weren't going to get hugged at all, which was probably going to be bad for self-esteem issues. Both classes were very much in favor of being allowed to hug who they wanted, if you'll remember on this. But the idea is that school systems increasingly, this is a CYA, a cover your hind part kind of a thing. Because when you look back on this, what are they basically doing? They're having a policy so that they can say, we did explain what harassment was, so you can't sue us. You've got to sue the kid that actually did the hugging. And it got into some arguments in there about those explanations of the different kinds of hugs, if you remember. It got into some different things in there, not just with the hugs themselves, but with what some of the kids thought and even the parents and whatnot. So take a look at that one. And then there was TT. TT was the fourth populism article. Y'all remember TT, yes? TT was the
What was
HIV positive
the article called?
prostitute.
Do you remember?
What's
Do you
that?
remember what the article was called for TT?
No. But I'm sure you'll be able to find it. It's on the Jim Crow page. Anybody want to say anything about
Is
TT?
someone at the door? Oh, maybe not.
Okay, maybe not.
The article about TT was she was HIV positive, she was a prostitute, she slept around obviously because it was her job. She got someone infected and she was being accused of murder. She was locked up and they were talking about trying to forcibly medicate her and give her counseling against
Yeah,
her
here's
will.
the thing with this. If you go back and you look at this, she knew that she was HIV positive, and yet she continued to turn tricks. And there
And
was
she
a
didn't
sense.
tell her
Right.
Johns about
And
it.
there's a sense out there that if you know that you're this way, and in fact you could be contributing to somebody dying or certainly changing around their lifestyle, that in fact you don't have good control over your body. When you put this into context, basically they were looking to forcibly medicate her, exactly as you said. And as soon as they put her into jail, then yeah, I mean, she is their responsibility regarding the other inmates and her own safety. They really do have that ability to do this. Now, as it starts getting a little bit more squirrely through here, the questions that a lot of y'all had were, should I have to pay with my tax dollars for expensive medical treatment for somebody that is clearly not responsible with their bodies? And some people did not find favor in that. Some people just wanted to kill her because of what she had done. Some of you felt like she was hopeful or helpful when you think about it. Helpable maybe is the